Alright, fellow Kaijudo duelists, this is Chris here from Team Squeaky here at Kaijudo Central. Got a deck profile for you. I told you guys had a couple decks that I was working on and the team was working on, and that these were going to be the decks I was going to take to Jacksonville for the KMC if I would have attended there. So I'm going to show off one of them, as promised, right? I've already showed a picture of this on Kaijudo Dojo on Facebook, and as I said there, I'd bring a video talking about the deck itself and how the deck building process came to be, why I play certain cards, why I only play a certain amount of cards, and so this is what this is going to take and be about. So if you haven't seen this picture yet on Kaijudo Dojo, the deck is called Call of the Dragons. It's a light, water, fire, nature build. Utilizes, as you can think, many ways to call your dragons into the battlefield, either through casting them normally or cheating them into the field using different cards. So let's go ahead and go over the deck itself. This is a 50-card deck, and let's go ahead and begin. Alright, everybody. So let's go ahead and start with the light side of the deck. Like I said, this is a 50-card deck. So let's go ahead and begin. At the 2-drop, you have 3 Lux. Don't need to really talk about this card too much. Everybody knows what it does. Everybody knows how really good this card is with the Dragon deck. So let's move along, right? Okay. Shouldn't really need to talk about this card either, but runs 3 Lyra, the Blazing Sun, right? The only thing I need to explain too much here. We'll just continue to kind of move along from it. Alright. We also run 2 Stormspark Blasts. Shouldn't really need to talk about this card too much either. For those of you that are wondering maybe why, which can't understand why, but this is to slow down rush decks, aggro decks, give me more control of the field if I need to play it mid-game so I can begin taking out creatures. Well, cool, tap all your creatures, and I'll just start swinging mine into yours, living out your field, and calling it good. Alright. Last but not least on the light side, we run 2 Andromeda of the Citadel. Shouldn't need to really talk about this card. Everybody knows about it. If you don't, this card's beast, plain and simple. Double breaker, Fortress of Light. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your shield zone, face down as if they were a new shield. This is not a May ability, as what Missouri thought. This is a you have to do this. It does not say May. It says put. So, for people that are questioning that, no, you have to do that. Not for sure how Missouri got away with that one, but anyways. Alright. Moving along from there, and then you got the All Strike ability, which is whenever a creature attacks you, your opponent chooses one of his other creatures, untapped creatures, and taps that creature. Right? So, fair enough. Okay. Moving along to the water side of this deck. Right? Let's go ahead and begin with Nyx. I run a 2 of. I'll explain why a little bit later, why I don't run a 3 of. CBH was kind of wondering why I didn't have 3 inside of here. I'll explain that later. Okay? Alright. You also run 3 Logo Scan. Right? Need draw, need to continue grabbing resources to continue to sit there and throw down, throw into my mana zone. This gives me the ability to take and do that. Also, I run 2 Spy Mission. Once again, drawing, getting cards into my hand so I continue to sit there and play. Alright, I run 3 Bottle of Wishes. This should be self-explanatory. Dragon deck. You need to cheat in high cast and cost dragons. This is one of the first ways to take and do it. Moving along. Alright, now that we get in kind of where the deck begins to kind of separate itself from a lot of other decks. Let's go to the fire section, right? I run a 3 of Herald of Infernus. Should be pretty self-explanatory why I've run this guy. Whenever this creature wins a battle, I may put a non-evolution dragon from my hand into the battle zone, right? I got a lot of non-evolution dragons in this deck. It's a way to sit there and cheat stuff in. Okay? I run 2 of Bolgash Dragon. I'll explain why I run this guy. a little bit later, but he became a 2 of inside this deck. Okay? For those of you that don't remember Balgash Dragon and what this does, is a double breaker, 6,000 power, 6 drop. Whenever this creature attacks, banish target enemy creature that has blocker. Okay? Alright, cool. Moving on. Alright. I run a 2 of Infernus the Awakened. This should be pretty self-explanatory why this guy's inside of here. Alright? Okay, cool. Moving on. Last but not least, on the fire side, we run a 2 of Infernus the Emulator. Everybody knows about this guy. This is the guy that's got spoiled out of Texas, right? Triple breaker, Inferno Breath. Whenever this creature enters the battle zone, you may, let's see here, you may banish any number of target enemy creatures that have total power 8,000 or less, right? Also, Volcanic Temper. Whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, you choose 3 of your opponent's shields. This creature breaks their shields, and he also powers up my fire creatures with an extra 4,000 power. 17,000 power creature, pretty big. He also buffs up my big dragons, so life is good with that creature. Alright, moving along. Let's get into the nature side of this deck. Okay? Alright, I run a 2 of Reap and Sow. Alright? The reason why I chose this over, say, Energize or Sprout was because I also wanted to get the extra resource inside my hand. So this is allowing me to take and drop mana and get an extra card into my hand and sit there and play. That's why I chose to sit there and play it. Alright. 1 of Tendril Grasp. Okay? This particular card I run a 1 of just because against the aggro rush matchup. People are wondering maybe why I'm not running Barrage or maybe Dragon's Breath. Well, the reason is, and I'll explain this one just right here and now, most of the multi-civ creatures that we see being played in aggro are above 3,000 power. So above 2,000 power. So Barrage and Dragon's Breath really are not that great anymore. They're still good, don't get me wrong, but this is just better because it's taking anything that's level 3 or less and putting it into the mana zone. And I really don't care about giving aggro or rush stuff into their mana zone, just because there's going to come a particular point where they're just top decking and I'm going to be able to sit there and kill everything or bounce it or do whatever I need to take and do to it. So just slows them down 1 of, that's why it's there. Good. 3 of Root Trap. Should be pretty explanatory why that's there. We want to run a 1 of Korrigar of the Hordes. This guy is there to sit there and cheat other creatures into the battle zone. Like I said, trying to sit there and call them in without sitting there paying them. That's kind of what the deck does. This could be 1 of this or 1 of additional of something else that's in the deck. But right now I'm running a 1 of a Vit, and I'll explain what card that could be here in a second. Still feel pretty good about having that in there, to be honest. And then I have a 2 of Terror Dragon Regarian Doom. That should be pretty self-explanatory. Removal when it comes into play. Alright. Alright, let's move into our multi-civ cards. Let's start with Light Water. I run a 2 of Piercing Judgment. Alright? This is a new card from Clash, Shield Blast. Return target creature from the battle zone to its owner's hand. Tap target enemy creature. Can do several things with this. The deck, once you start taking a look at it, you can see different combos with it. It allows me to either bounce back one of their creatures and tap one of the other creatures, or I can even bounce back my own that maybe has to come into play effect. It's maybe this guy, several others. Don't know, don't care, just whatever I need to take and do. Allows me to take in solution. So if I got this, I got 13 mana, or let's say I got Modal Birds out, so reducing it, right? Cool. Bounce it back, tap your guy, replay the other, replay this guy, removing out something. You know, just really cool different tricks that are there. Alright. Also, I run a 1 of Sarkhan Storm Dynamo. Just another blocker, big blocker. You know, got this guy from Dual Day. Then when he's banished, I can drop the 3 cards, beating my hand, right? Giving me more resources to take in. There are creatures out or do whatever I need to take and do. Alright. Moving on to the Light Nature side. I run a 2 of Full Metal Lemon. This guy's a blocker, skirmisher. What I really like about it is, first off, it's 3,500, so it gets above Heatseeker, right? Next is that if this creature would be banished, put it into my mana zone instead. Allows me to sit there and ramp up a little bit. Kind of feeds with Reap and Sow, right? So it allows me to sit there and get another creature into my mana zone. I get the the benefit of getting it up to the field first. So blocking when it needs to take and do. Then when it's ready to take and go, it's just not sitting in my discard pile. It's feeding my deck, going into my mana zone. Alright? Okay. Alright. This is the card that everybody was trying to figure out how to take and use, and this is the deck that utilizes it, right? Oathsworn Call. We got a 2 here. Okay? Shield Blast. 5 casting cost. Light Nature. Put a non-evolution creature that is level 6 or less from your hand into the battle zone. It gets blocker until the start of your next turn. Right? So, several good things about this card. First off, let's say that aggro deck or rush deck decided to swing into me with a 1-drop turn 2. Cool, they hit Oathsworn Call, right? I may have several different things in my hand. Just right off the top of my head, Herald of Infernus. Oh, they just screwed up. Because probably I got something big sitting inside of my hand. Maybe an Emulator, maybe an Infernus the Awakened, Drama the Citadel, who knows? Preferable choice at the pick up point against aggro would be Infernus the Awakened. Cool, boom, boom, and just lock them down at the pick up point. Wait to get max swing, and then go, right? They just lose. They can sign and scoop at that particular point, move on to the next game, or you move to the next match. All right. This particular card here allows me in a tough spot. Most greed decks and that, bottle decks and stuff like that, we really don't run a lot of blockers. Well, now I can turn any creature from my hand, level 6 or less, into a blocker as I need to, if I need to go on the defensive for a second. Right? This gives me the ability to be that. So, several different functions with this card. If you're thinking it is only good in your Shield Blasts, you're wrong. Okay? You're not seeing the true potential of the card. This card is really good. It has to be worked around and built around, but it has unlimited potential, I think, if you do it the right way with the deck, and that's what this deck does. Okay? Very, very, very underrated card. Talking on Kaijudo Dojo, I think it was Scott Rivers that was saying that it was about time someone actually saw the potential to this card. I saw this card, and the second that I saw it, I was like, this card's amazing, I just need to build around it. And boom, did it. Done. End of story. Okay, so moving on to my other multi-civ cards, right? So let's go to the fire nature side. I run 2 fights. Card is good. Can be used with pretty much any creature, right? Particularly with Herald of Infernus. You know, I can sit there and fight out something small, cool, bring in something bigger, boom, do some damage, life is good. You can really use it with several different creatures. Don't just think it's only good with Herald of Infernus. It has multiple possibilities, right? And if, let's say, I've got Emulator down, then they've got something big that's untapped, well, guess what? Cool, Emulator and whoever fights, they lose, moving along. So, multiple possibilities with that card there. 2 of Steam Tank Cryon. Card can be uber sick. I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter, and hopefully you do, right? I was making different comments throughout the building process about different things I was seeing with this card on Twitter. And this card just does a lot of dumb things with the majority of this deck. Fast attack Lyra, cool, tap a creature, kill it, moving along, right? Fast attack Andromeda is pretty legit, to be quite honest with you. Just several different things. I mean, if for some reason this is down, right? Let's say turn 2, they swung into this. I have this, and I had this in hand. Cool, let's drop this, right? Give it the blocker. Next turn, cool, swinging this. Now I got 2 creatures. Boom, just did this. Hopefully I've got something big in my hand, right? Boom, let's do that too. Just multiple different options. That card is just really good, and I think any aggro deck, any deck that's built like this should definitely be looking at this card because it just has so many different potentials and so many different combos with different cards. Definitely can be really good. There was the other day when I was testing this against Control, right? This guy was down. I had Bolgash. He had a field of 2 but no blockers, but he did have an Andromeda on there. And I had this right here. Well, cool, whatever I'm going to play is going to get fast attack. This guy's already going in, and even if he bounces him, I had enough mana to take and go back down. Cool, swing. Alright, I can tap this, take out whatever blocker you just threw down just because of his ability. If they had a second one, they're going to have to block me anyways because he had no shields. And the third creature that I just played right behind Volgash, no matter what it is, just got through. Just some sick combos that are there. I wish I kind of had that on video for you guys. But it was just done through testing. So, and then last but not least, this is the guy you can maybe exchange Krogar for at a second one. Really good with pretty much the whole deck, but really good with Herald of Infernus. I was kind of torn between using this and using Chainlash Tetsurian, but a lot of the 3-drop and 4-drop creatures just got really big and just became more powerful than Herald of Infernus, so Chainlash really wasn't working so well. So then I moved to this guy, and this guy's new from the set, right? Gorm the Striker. He's the battle mage for Fire Nature, and what this guy does is I can give one of my creatures the ability to attack an untapped creature, right? As if they were tapped, and then the other thing it does is it powers up the creature as well. You know, or I can give it to a different creature. I can give it to the same creature or different, right? But if Herald's there, and let's say they got something bigger, like the 3-drop 5,500 power light nature creature. Sorry, I'm missing it off the top of my head, right? But okay, I can't really fight Herald with it. Okay, cool. I'm gonna play this guy, right? So boom, I just buffed up my guy to 8,000 power, and he gets to attack an untapped creature. Cool. Just swung into it. All right, trigger. Boom, gun, done. Right? Different things you can do with that. Let's say I need to get something bigger, just on anything really, right? Okay, cool. Make one of my other dragons bigger to beat out this other dragon. This does that. You know, it gives you that ability to take and do that. So that's the deck there. It's a 50-card deck. Now I'll talk about a couple different things here in a second. Alright everybody, so that's pretty much Call of the Dragons. Alright, and I know I've had several people asking a couple of different questions, and I want to answer a couple specifically. First off, CBH had a question or a comment about, well, why are you only running 2 Nicks? The reason to that is I have a lot of draw behind it. And where I saw the weakness to maybe some other dragons is that they were too reliant on Nyx getting its draw, and they didn't really have anything else to help get their draw. Specifically the greed decks. And I don't understand part of why that deck is winning, because anytime I play against that deck, my teammates, we tested it to sit there and say, okay, what's going on? Once we started attacking the draw of that deck, either through discard or just blowing up Nyx the second it came into play, you could stall the deck out. It got forced into a top deck mode, and usually, I mean, even if they bottled, I usually had a Death Smoke waiting in hand to kill whatever came out, or a Terror Pit, or I could just bounce it, right, and make them go through some other steps with it. And this deck gets around that piece because it has so much draw. They can't get you, and hopefully they won't get you into a top deck mode. Having Nyx out there, he's susceptible to a barrage, susceptible to a Dragon's Breath and things like that. So I wanted something that allowed me to get draw without it being on a creature, just because creatures were maybe too susceptible and relying on them. Don't get me wrong, Nyx is really good, which is why 2's there, but I wanted 3 logo scans, 2 spy missions, and possibly I could even go to a third. I've already got 2 Repinsos there. I don't want to give Control the ability to get me to a top deck mode. I want to get past that and continue to force them to have to deal with me. You can make Control take and run out of resources through making them, cool, blow up my stuff. You've only got so much kill before you're done, right? You've only got so much bounce before you're done. You know, and so much discard. Make them run through their resources, right? Keep slamming into them with this deck. Keep doing those different things, and you keep applying that pressure. If you can get them down to 0 shields, turn 7, turn 8, they've really got to take and work at that particular point to do something, right? To save themselves from you from this deck. This deck went through a lot of testing in that aspect. And that was the only weakness initially that we found with it, was when we didn't have the draw inside of it, the hard casting draw, that Control could put it into a top deck mode and you could be in trouble with it, right? And that's what we saw with Greed, that's what we saw with maybe some of the other dragon decks, was once you put it into a top deck, it was in trouble at that particular point. Unless you got a Kurgar that was out that could cheat other things in by just them pulling, oh, cool, got a spell, got a Kurgar, well, crap, that's going into mana. Okay, let's get a creature out, right? This deck doesn't have that problem anymore. You know, most greed decks, if you guys look at it, and this isn't supposed to be the anti-greed talk to help you guys beat greed, but that was where we saw with the problem with a lot of the Dragons decks, where just you could top deck them. You could get them into that mode, have kill waiting, and they were SOL at that particular point, right? This deck gets around that with the amount of draw that it does have. I did have a Tritonus in here at one particular point. I threw in Kurgar instead. You know, there were several different things I could take and do, but I just went that route. Okay, so hopefully that answers the whole why not more Nyx into there. It's to get past Control's ability to put you into top deck mode, right? They're forced to deal with you other different ways. Okay. Now, I did have some questions about how much this thing was put through testing. I can tell you guys this much. The second that we were seeing different cards coming out, we went into build mode. This build originally started from a concept that Larry from Team Squeaky here had, and then I just kind of did my mojo with it, and boom, it's turned into a whole different deck, I think, from what Larry was originally intending. We kind of did some battles against each other, and he'd be like, well, I want to do it this way. Then he would see why I would have this card versus the card that he chose, and then I would beat him, then I would get the number one finger pointed at me, then he immediately changed his deck, right, to add that card, and then I just did it and showed him why, right? And that's just how there was a lot of testing done, to be quite honest with you. This thing has had a lot of time and effort put into it, a lot of due diligence with it. It has been played in a tournament. Saturday, when you guys are playing set premieres, we had already done our set premiere at the midnight on that Friday night / Saturday morning. So that particular store ended up taking and doing a tournament, a constructed tournament. We took it there, played against some decks, and I played against Rush, I played against Aggro, and I played against a mirror, sort of mirror. Obviously, it was Larry's build. He had it maybe a little bit different, and I just beat it. I never had a problem with any deck that I was running into. That was Rush, Aggro, and then obviously a mirror match of this. So the control piece was tested out earlier this week with the original build that it had. I saw that what it needed when I immediately went through there, made its changes, and then I started being able to take and beat WDL control in a version that I had built that I've not shown, but pretty much using what I think is pretty much going to be standard with WDL going forward, with Mesmerizes, Grip of Despairs, Piercing Judgments, and stuff like that. The deck was able to take and overcome it. I'm not saying it's going to beat WDL handedly, but it does have I want to sit there and say almost a 50-50 matchup if the decks are running properly and you're doing everything you're supposed to take and do with it. Anything that isn't control on the aggro rush side, this should pretty much slaughter. I've not had a problem with it whatsoever, and my teammates haven't either. So hopefully it gives you guys a little bit of input into it. But I would say this deck has been worked on now for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, in the process of testing different things. There was a time, I think, if you guys, like I said, follow me on Twitter, you just saw a picture where I was showing off my 3 promo heralds, and then it was sitting in the background some proxies we were making, and Thunder Sultan, Carl Reddish goes, dude, I like your proxies, and I was kind of hinting towards what we were kind of beginning to sit there and show, but nobody kind of really picked up on it. They just saw it's kind of there. They saw it, but I think everybody kind of moved on from it. But I was kind of trying to sneak in and show you guys different things that way. So hopefully that answers that question on the testing and the playing of that. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. Hopefully you guys like the deck. I wanted to sit there and create something that could make things interesting at this weekend's KMC. You might need to wait a week to sit there and play it. If players take the next 48 hours to sit there and play this, I think they'll see the value definitely within the deck. I wanted to sit there and create something much like I did when I created Transmission and handed it off to Thunder Sultan that could alter the format and maybe catch people off guard and cause some disruption, and I think that this deck definitely does that. This was the deck I was going to play, like I said, if I was going to Jacksonville this weekend. Obviously, I don't have to now because we've got the LCQ up here, and then I know I will end up coming out to Manteca and possibly Victoria Island for their KMCs, and I'm thinking also too of going to Las Vegas. So you guys will see some different deck ideas as we continue to sit there and innovate and do different things here at Team Squeaky. So yeah. Anyways, though, hopefully you guys enjoyed the deck. Let me know what you think. Yeah. Okay. All right. This is Chris from Team Squeaky here at Kaijudo Central. All right. Later, everybody.